Hello, welcome to Working with a Not-for-Profit Committee webcast. This webcast has been funded by Lottery West under the Risk Management Initiative. Child Australia is a not-for-profit organisation providing quality initiatives and services to professionals, parents and children. Our services range from professional development and online learning tools to programs for parents and early learning care for children. We're an organisation dedicated to improving developmental outcomes for all children. My name's Hans and this is Sarah, and shall be hosting this session. You'll also find a set of resources that accompany this to help you set you on your path for managing a committee. You can find these underneath the recording within the webcast link titled Resources. This webcast is part of a 3-part series to support governance across non-for-profit services within the sector. And you can find more information on the Child Australia website.
Hans, and let us begin by taking a moment to reflect on the meaning of the place. And in doing this, we will recognise the various traditional lands on which we all do our work today. We acknowledge that we're recording this session on the lands of the Noongar people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you are all working on today and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
This webcast is part of a 3-part series by Child Australia, which has been designed to assist those working in education and care services under an association model, more commonly known as a not-for-profit service or community service. This webcast will also help those who are new to not-for-profit associations, and that is those new to committees and usually parent committees where you volunteered. When we're talking about associations, what we're talking about today is the actual processes and policies that help govern the actual committee.
Much of the time, associations are managed by volunteers on a management committee, whom have been voted in by members. Committee members provide their expertise without pay in the education and care service. We find this typically as parents or community volunteers. There are examples with some larger associations that they may have paid committee roles. However, this is not the case typically within the early childhood education and care sector.
An association is covered by the Associations Incorporation Act of 2015 and regulated by the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety. An association is formed by lodgement of associations rules. There's 2 ways that you can actually draft the rules of association, sometimes called a constitution. You can adopt the model rules, which meet the minimum requirements of the Act, and in the majority of cases, all that you require. You need to just adjust the template that they provide to include specifics to your service. The other way is to create your own set of rules. If you do this, either by modifying the model rules or creating a whole new set of rules from scratch, they'll need to be lodged with the department and must meet the requirements of the Act. There's also an association's checklist available in the associated resources area of this webcast to help guide you on your development of these rules.
The rules are the policies of the committee. In these rules, which could be the constitution, are the matters of the common goals of the association through also having the agreed processes for voting on decisions, appointment of committee members, as well as what happens if the association is wound up. So really it's your policy framework around the governance of what makes up your committee and how it's going to function. This would include examples of dispute resolutions, conflicts of interest, and the governing on how functioning the committee meetings will be implemented. It's important to note that committee meetings and all the policies and framework around this are documented.
Furthermore, like Sarah is saying, you might have processes of grievances, disputes among members, as well as within the committee. If these rules are made too specific, for instance, if the case is you're adding detailed step-by-step processes into the document of the association rules, every time you change one of those processes, you'll need to call a meeting to change those rules. So we suggest that the finer details as to the sequence or the steps of an action for the committee are documented within a separate set of policies and procedures of the committee rather than in the association's rules. Now remember, the model rules provided by the department meet the Associations Act and make incorporation simple. You are of course able to build your own to meet the Associations Act, and using the association rules checklist resource that we provided in your reference pack of this webcast. Within Education and Care in WA, the Education Care Regulatory Unit, or commonly known as ECRU, are responsible for the administration of the National Quality Framework and monitor and enforce compliance with national law and regulations. Once the association is an approved provider, they are regulated by the regulatory authority. The guide to the National Quality Framework provides greater detail to their powers, as well as the best practice guidance for Quality Area 7 that focuses on the governance and leadership of the service. So we highly recommend downloading the guide to ensure that governance and leadership practices are understood well by all committee members. The management of an incorporated association's affairs is the responsibility of the management committee. The diagram on your screen shows a typical structure of an association with the office bearers, sometimes we call them the executive, in dark blue. General committee members are in light blue. The office bearers' roles are necessary and critical for operating the association under the Act, with role titles and descriptions are clearly outlined in the rules of the association, as well as within the Act. Those roles are the chairperson, who oversees the conduct of meetings, the secretary, who looks after the correspondence and records of the association, and a treasurer, who takes care of the association's financial affairs. The committee must comply with the requirements of the Act, the rules, and any other legal obligations of the association. Individual committee members have a duty to act in good faith in the best interests of the association.
The committee also has a duty of care to ensure that the activities of the association are conducted with reasonable care, skill and diligence. Most associations refer to their managing body as the committee, but it may also be referred to as a board, a council, governing body, or some other name specific in its rules. The rules need to be clear about the powers of the committee and its functions, and it needs to be permitted to be carried out the functions. The rules must include information on the election or appointment of committee members, the length of terms of office of committee members, how the role of a committee member will become vacant, ways to fill casual vacancies on the committee, what makes a quorum as the procedure at meetings of the committee, as well as the making and keeping of records of meetings.
Good governance relies on the committee as the heart of any successful association. Just like a board of directors, committee members need to be aware that they have a legal duty in their roles under the Act and the association's rules. In the private for-profit world, we'd call this management. Larger associations sometimes have both, with a management committee looking after governance, while management focus on the day-to-day operations of the service. Just like ensuring staff turnover in your education and care service is low, the management committee also need to think about the future while supporting its current committee with a level of coordination and support. Ideally, you would identify the skills necessary for your committee in advance. For instance, you may have parents who have accounting or bookkeeping experience, which may be useful as a treasurer on the committee in the future. You may have a parent you know of who's a web designer that may be able to help with your centre's website. So knowing the backgrounds of the families can be of immense value and underpins the National Quality Framework in its collaborative working goals in Quality Area 6.
At the outset, when enrolling children into your not-for-profit service, there is an opportunity at that time that exists to set the tone with the parents and carers that there is an expectation of assistance on the committee. It's a smart idea to outline the opportunity and the commitment expected and the roles so they know what to expect. you might also spark their interest. The more informed your parent community is, the greater the chances of recruiting the skills you need on your committee. Just as the centre must have a set of policies and procedures, so too does the committee. Developing a guide helps committee members get onto tasks needed more efficiently. It also ensures that these tasks are performed as agreed. There are a number of resources for committee members available through the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation.
So an association's committee should expect that all committee members actively participate in regular meetings to make the best of the variety of skills, talents, experience and perspectives of all the committee members. The committee is responsible for achieving the goals and objectives of the association and needs an ongoing approach to monitoring and evaluation, as seen in this model, representing all stakeholders, or commonly known as members, setting the vision, taking charge of monitoring the association's progress, and constantly evaluating and planning to meet the objectives of the association. For example, the main goal of your service in education care could be the operation of that children's service under national law, and providing another goal that you provide fees of value for money or at low cost. It's critical for active contribution by all stakeholders through participation in decision making that brings the greatest values from its members for a common goal. That means having a diverse committee covering the various areas of operation of your education and care service. All incorporated associations must keep accurate and up-to-date financial records and present financial statements at each annual general meeting. Financial reporting requirements are based on a 3-tiered system, with responsibilities increasing depending on an association's total annual revenue. The Act does not require all associations to audit their financial statements. However, there may be other reasons for an association to do so, for instance, to comply with the childcare subsidy. All incorporated associations must keep financial records that correctly record and explain the financial transactions and the financial position of the association in a manner that can be conveniently and properly audited, and submit accounts to the members at each general meeting. In addition to these legal obligations, an association's management committee needs clear, accurate and up-to-date financial information to ensure the association is viable and operating efficiently. It's also wise to set annual budgets, forecasting the expected income from enrolments, fees and grants, and the associated expenses. So working closely with the services director or coordinator to understand the complexity of education and care fees and subsidies is highly recommended. This is a particular need to control the level of overdue fees at any one time. And given the complexity of operating an education care service, it's highly recommended that you seek out the services of an experienced bookkeeper or accountant to help you manage this. The Act requires the annual financial statements or reports to be presented to members at every AGM or annual general meeting. Time must be allocated for the treasurer or other committee member to present a summary of the accounts and explain the major items. Members need to be allowed to critique reports and ask questions, so copies of the accounts should be made available to members at the meeting, accessible online or circulated before or shortly after the meeting. If an association or club is collecting donations of money or goods from the public in Western Australia for a charitable purpose, it must have a licence under the Charitable Collections Act. So make sure to check requirements through the Department for Consumer Protection to ensure that you're meeting those requirements. It's very likely that an association will want to apply for a grant at any time over the course of its life, and applying and receiving grants can contribute towards the cost of all kinds of initiatives and assist the furtherance of the association's objectives. Each year, Lottery West supports hundreds of community groups and incorporated associations in Western Australia with grants that total over $260 million. Lottery West uses the profits derived from the sale of games such as Lotto and Scratch and Win to fund these grants. Grants are available to not-for-profit associations and local government authorities to support charitable or benevolent initiatives with a public benefit within Western Australia. So to find out more information about available grants and application processes, contact Lottery West.
Education and care services rely heavily on employees to help carry out the activities of the association. When employing staff, centre management need to comply with employment laws and all relevant industrial relation agreements. Education and care staff are mostly covered by the Children's Services Award, and that's available via the Fair Work Australia website. It is essential to keep detailed records relating to all employees' employment conditions, including payment of wages, leave, tax records, and superannuation records. Volunteers play a valuable role in a contribution to an education and care service, and although they're unpaid, they should be guided in the same way we would for permanent paid staff.
You may wish to engage a recruitment agency to assist with the process of employing staff, or if the centre chooses to directly recruit its own employees, it should use a transparent, fair and consistent procedure. A job description explains the essential duties of the position to be filled and the conditions of employment. This helps prospective employees know the job requirements and decide they're fit for the role. Selection criteria is used to assess the applicants. This criteria should include the qualities, skills, knowledge and experience that the service requires in a successful applicant. The selection criteria are usually included with the job description, so applicants know better the possible questions that will be raised in an interview. Advertise the position to attract suitable applicants using the best means available to you. That is, you could use a newspaper, online, recruitment agencies, word of mouth, and interview suitable applicants and think about the way your interview is structured. Remember, we're not there to try and catch out the applicant and make them feel nervous. We want to ensure that we get a good idea of how they work and how their skills and experience may fit the existing team. Ensure that you check references once you've interviewed them from the direct line reports.
Regular committee meetings are an essential component for implementing effective service management, and they'll also assist in keeping families and staff informed. Committee members must be given notice of all meetings in accordance with the rules, and it's the role of the chairperson to be familiar with the meeting procedures set out in the rules. The meeting agenda informs the members on what is to be discussed, what actions are being committed and required to be completed. If a committee member is not able to attend a meeting, there may still be opportunities to vote on decisions via another means. This condition would be stipulated in the rules. Reports should be sent out in advance to allow members of the committee to review. It's also important for this to happen, as otherwise meetings can end up being very long and it's sometimes unproductive. Good decision making needs thinking time, and thinking time for the members to have an opportunity to resolve matters and making sure that there's a consensus when agreement is made at meetings. It's important that the management committee follows the meeting rules to ensure transparency of governance for the service.
Although not a general requirement under the Act, it is essential to keep accurate minutes of all association meetings. Minutes provide a record of what transpires at a meeting, including those who attend, the decisions made and resolutions passed. It's important to ensure that someone is nominated to take the minutes, and this is often the Secretary's responsibility. The level of detail recorded in the minutes will vary between different services. Some like to keep detailed minutes showing the main points discussed before a decision is made. Alternatively, the minutes may only be a record of the decisions or actions out of that meeting. The minutes should be presented for approval at the start of the next meeting. When storing the minutes, it can be useful to attach copies of any correspondence or other documents that are tabled for discussion during the meeting. Attendance sheets and the copy of the notice of the meeting can also be included. If possible, written reports should be circulated in advance of the meeting. This shortens the meeting and permits more informed discussion on those decisions. Reports from committees and individuals tabled at the meeting can be either adopted or received.
Managing internal grievances and disputes, as well as complaints from families and staff, is an important task of the Management Committee. Most concerns are resolved by effective communication. It's important that each member of the Management Committee have the opportunity to contribute with their input and that it's valued. Failure by a service to allow concerns to be heard can result in relatively minor issues escalating. However, in education and care, there are also requirements under the national law to notify the Education and Care Regulatory Unit for certain matters with specific timeframes. It is important for the Management Committee to be across these requirements. Complaints in the service to do with the education and care of children should be dealt with by the Service Director through a report mechanism monthly to the Management Committee, keeping them aware in regards to any concerns raised. Concerns about the service may be brought to the committee's attention by other members of the committee, employees, and possible external stakeholders.
That now concludes this webcast on working with a not-for-profit committee hosted by Child Australia and funded by Lottery West. This is one of 3 webcasts in the series. We looked at the Associations and Incorporation Act, which is regulated by the Department of Mines, Industry, Regulation and Safety, and how it regulates associations, not-for-profit services, children's services, and also we looked at how to create an association by using model rules of the department or drafting your own rules. We also discussed the importance on identifying skills needed in your committee and looking to your service community for those skills. We touched on the results-based model of governance, ensuring that there's participation of all committee members to make the best of the skills of all that are on that committee. Documenting procedures and holding meetings and having good governance with reports that supply enough information to flow to the committee to make decisions and achieve the goals of your service. I'd like to thank you for listening to this recording, and we hope to see you soon. Again, thank you to Lottery West, and make sure to visit the Child Australia website